Definitely. Well, let's jump into this story. We have this from the Post Millennial. Breaking: transgender Nashville school shooter had detailed manifesto, map of Christian school, police confirm. Hale was killed after an encounter with officers on the second floor just 4 minutes into the shooting. So I'll give you a quick timeline of the news as it's breaking for us in the newsroom. And we were actually hanging out with Libby Emmons earlier too. And we knew that the story had broken. And there was some speculation as to who the shooter was who committed this tragedy. Let me give you the quick details on what happened so you can understand. Police said during a Monday press conference that the person who killed 6, including 3 children, at the Covenant Christian School in Nashville was a former student of the academy, Audrey Hale, who identified as transgender and had left a detailed manifesto with plans on how to conduct the attack at the school. Hale entered the building by shooting through a door on the side, police said. Once inside, Hale reportedly began firing at anyone in sight. Among the victims were 3 9-year-old children: Evelyn DeCos, Haley Scruggs, and William Kinney, as well as custodian Mike Hill, substitute teacher Cynthia Peak, and school head Catherine Kuntz. Metropolitan Police arrived quickly, and Hale was killed after an encounter with officers on the second floor just 4 minutes into the shooting. Officers found that Hale was equipped with at least 2 assault rifles and a handgun, and a search of the family home in Nashville revealed detailed maps and a manifesto of the attack. First thing I want to say is I believe the Post Millennial is incorrect, so I'll make sure to call up Libby and complain. Roberto Wakerell Cruz: I do not believe they ever said this individual had any assault rifles. For those that think I'm being a bit pedantic, there is a legal and legitimate difference between a standard rifle like an AR-15 and an assault rifle, which is typically a select fire rifle. I don't think this person was able to get their hands on a full auto machine, a full auto rifle to go in and start. I think this was a standard rifle. I think the distinction is important considering from this we're getting a lot of calls for gun control. So we're hanging out earlier when the news breaks. We don't know exactly what's going on when rumors start circulating about Aubrey Hale as the perpetrator and images of a trans man and a profile with he/him pronouns. The media had been reporting this as a female who did it, which caught many by surprise because people were shocked to hear that it was a woman who was doing this. Turns out it was a trans man. And we eventually did get confirmation at Carol, Karol, on Twitter. Airtight source broke the news. This, in fact, was the person. Andy No then did some digging, corroborating, and yes, it is now officially confirmed that this individual is the person who did it. Now, according to the police, they were asked by press, did the identity of the individual play a role in the motivation? And they said, there is a theory that is the case. They have a manifesto preparing, explaining for what they did and why they did it. So for now, it would seem that the individual who did it, this is what we have confirmed. The individual who perpetrated this attack is a biological female, 28-year-old Aubrey Hale, and a transgender man, the meaning female to male using he/him pronouns. And it is presumed for the time being, based on the existence of a manifesto, the police believe, they have a theory, that the transgender identity played a role in the attack. So I'm assuming from that, this has something to do with a trans person feeling like they're under attack or assault. We've seen numerous posters, which we'll get into in a bit, about a trans day of vengeance, about calls to arms, posters online saying, get your weapons ready. And Benny Johnson posted 3 other mass shootings carried out by transgender individuals. So perhaps this is related to this this call for vengeance and a call to arms. I don't know. I think it's more related to woke left ideology, but it's hard to know for sure until the police come out and we actually get to see what this manifesto is, if we do get to see it. I don't know. Yep. So I'm curious what you guys think.
Candace Owens made an interesting point about 40 minutes ago on Twitter that even if this manifesto comes out, we have to trust that it's real. Like, it's the intelligence community putting out data. We don't know if it's real. They could put out a fake manifesto. There might not even be a manifesto. I hate to be like question everything, but do not fall for the bait every single time because you want bait. Make sure that you have a clear head about it. And part of this is like, thank God it wasn't someone going and executing trans people. Like, we've kept cool heads about ourselves as Americans for the most part in this crazy new time where people are taking all these experimental pharmaceuticals to take testosterone when they're 9 and get their boobs cut off at 15. Like, thank God it wasn't somebody attacking transgender people. As horrific as it is, you don't stop your enemy when they're making a mistake. In the culture war, if these people are drugging themselves up and committing mass shootings, it's on them.
Well, I think one of the things we have to be worried about, I'm not so sure. Here's what I think. We talked about it a little bit before the show. There's not one kind of trans person. There are gender dysphoric individuals, and they experience gender dysphoria, like people might experience body dysmorphia. But then there are people who are depressed or autistic, and they end up getting put on antidepressants and a variety of other drugs. And so I think when you take someone who is depressed, doesn't understand why they are, and rush to giving them antidepressants and hormones and other drugs, I think the issue is mental health. And then what ends up happening is because of popular culture, in the massive social acceptance of transgender individuals, there's a conflation and overlap with those who are seeking social validation and then becoming trans. We've talked about this with Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney, in my opinion, is not trans, is not gender dysphoric, but is seeking social validation and getting it. And so what I think what we might be seeing with people like this is they're depressed. They don't know why they're depressed. They're told because of what's in popular culture, maybe it's this, maybe you're trans. And then they end up getting hormones, which, I mean, testosterone makes anybody more aggressive, even biological males. They get antidepressants. Now they've got a cocktail of drugs in their mind. They've already been suffering mental health issues. Then you give them a bunch of testosterone. You're going to end up with stories like this, and it's tragic. I'm not going to pretend to have the answers, man.
You were wise to start off by saying, look, at first instance, all we know is that there was a tragedy, innocent lives lost. That's what we know. But at a certain point, there are enough political elements that we have to say, is this a hate crime? Is this?
Yes, it is.
Does it have the
Hands
markings and characteristics of terrorism? And what is terrorism? It's violence to intimidate for a certain political goal. And what you're talking about, a day of vengeance, there's a larger ideology of aggression to deal with opponents of transgenderism. The language, the vile language directed at J.K. Rowling. There was a
Parker Posey.
Yeah, she was just in New Zealand, basically drummed out of the place.
Posey Parker.
Posey Parker.
Parker Posey's an actress.
Wait, what's the name?
Posey Parker.
Posey Parker.
Also, it's Kelly Jean Keenan.
Posey.
She's been on the show before.
And here's the thing.
This is like the same word, but this is the, well, let me slow down. Based on what the police have said about a manifesto and the targeting of a school, I believe it is beyond a reasonable doubt. Now,
and the timing, because Friday is Trans Visibility Day, International Trans Visibility
and
Day.
they've been calling with social media posts for a day of vengeance, outright
April 1st,
saying to
the
get
day
weapons.
after.
Now, here's the thing: we need to stop the violence. We need to tone all of this down. The issue is, it is the left. Oh, so you've got people out in the middle of nowhere who are sovereign citizens. There's this guy, as I was going to mention a moment ago. He's, I think he's a researcher for like the Anti-Defamation League or something like that. And I followed him for a long time because, I don't mind, I'll see what he has to say when he's reporting on this stuff. Typically, it's like right-wing groups. And he recently argued that the Jews in Germany, he was effectively arguing they should not have had guns because it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I think it was Michigan GOP posted that if, Nazi Germany had been... Michigan GOP posted that Nazi Germany took away the guns from Jewish people, and that if they had them, they would have been able to fight back. This guy starts tweeting about how there weren't enough Jews anyway, so stop acting like they could have prevented anything. And it's a crazy argument to make. I don't care if it's 1 versus 100. If a Jewish person is facing down 100 Nazis, let them defend themselves, please.
Yeah.
So this mentality among these people who supposedly oppose hate is that they were supposed to submit and just roll over and die. It is absolutely absurd. This is the gun control argument. And so you have here 3 9-year-old children and 3 faculty members, a janitor. I mean, what did he do to anybody? He has nothing to do with any of this. He's just cleaning. And this person breaks in. I believe it is beyond a reasonable doubt that this is an act of terrorism. It is a hate crime, whatever you want to call it. I don't like hate crimes. I don't like the structure of what they are. A crime's a crime. You shoot somebody, you shoot somebody. Trying to determine motivation is a difficult thing. We know, and if it is, then it's terror. This is what we're seeing right now in this country. We are seeing far-left extremists in Georgia commit acts of terrorism, burning down houses, setting fire to this police facility, shooting at cops. We are seeing, over the past several years with the Summer of Love, just endless. It's endless. Mm-hmm. But you get one right-wing riot at the Capitol. And then all of a sudden, that is the news and nothing else matters. And it's because the corporate press is covering up for what is clearly a problem that needs to be addressed, and it's mental health.
Yeah, I think
we've been screaming that nonstop
every
for
time
years.
we see one of these mass shootings. I think every time there's pharmaceuticals involved, school shootings I'm talking about, I could be wrong because it's obfuscated, probably by intent, because the people that sponsored the news are probably Pfizer and Moderna and these crazy corporations that are making the drugs that the kids are taking, that they're losing their minds.
There's definitely mental health always. I mean, I find myself contrasting today's, tragedy with Uvalde, right? Like the teenager who was involved in that was, reportedly socially withdrawn. He had anxiety, he had depression. And then the other part that I can't stop thinking about is the fact that law enforcement waited to enter the building. Like, I know there's a lot of criticism of law enforcement in today's day and era, and much of it is justified, but thank goodness law enforcement entered the building here and prevented an even bigger tragedy, right? 6 people dying is too many. On the other hand, at least they entered the building. I think that our country has conflated what we should be doing with how we're afraid of being perceived, right? The cops are afraid of what's going on in the building, so they don't enter in Texas. But here they enter because we know that they made a mistake. When we look at mental health, we're afraid of seeming bigoted or closed-minded. And so we say, yeah, identify however you want to identify. But really, we know that we are doing a disservice to people who are genuinely confused and in distress by letting them operate on a gender spectrum that is ultimately furthering their confusion and suffering.
Yeah, believe what you like. If you want to think you're a carrot, okay. But if you start taking psychotropics, dude, you got to watch out.
Well, also, if you think you're a carrot, I'm not going to tell you you're a carrot, right? I want to help you and I don't want you to be in distress, but I'm not going to let you continue to operate in a way that just completely distresses you further.
Well, you're an anti-carrot bigot,
That's
obviously.
true.
I jest, but there's a combination of things here. You have, teenagers, young people, hormones, emotions, fitting in this crazy world, the stress of social media. It's tough to be a young person. Add in the ideological component. Transgenderism, I believe, is very ideological. And then put in the meds. And that is, and you know what? I don't talk a lot about MK Ultra or other psycho drug-oriented experiments done by authorities. Going back, frankly, a lot of that stuff started the Nazis when they had all this massive humanity in the death camps. The Nazis did experiments on humans without their permission, obviously, in Auschwitz and other places. Dr. Joseph Mengele, they called him the angel of death. He did experiments on twins. He did experiments on hypothermia. He did all these atrocious experiments. After the Second World War, some of those experiments were picked up by America, by the CIA. And they continued in this. You could say it continues to this day in places like Wuhan to do biological experiments, atrocious things. But now it's not just a handful of people. Now it's gone broad. It's gone public. And I think that, of course, the real victims here are the shooting victims, but the perpetrator was revved up and weaponized and ideologically directed, if this manifesto is what I fear it is.
Well, I think it's probably the case that this was a response to Tennessee banning these surgeries. And I believe that I don't want to say too much more than that. Look, they're going to be passing this law. Of course, the Daily Wire played a large role in advocating for this. And we recently had Michael Knowles say that we need to eradicate transgenderism, referring specifically in the context of his speech to the ideology of gender ideology. But of course, that was taken by political opponents and turned into arguments that he was calling for genocide. The interesting thing is, even if Michael Knowles simply said that, it turns out to have been the other side that went and targeted children in school, which is just needless. It serves no purpose other than to hurt your own political cause. This is what I've been warning about, man. We need people to chill out, but I feel like the internet is hyper-radicalizing people every single day. And so I want to make sure we stress this point. That's why, people will like to say, Simple's a milquetoast fence sitter. Look, I don't think this is about transgender. We got to make sure we separate woke from trans, because we've had trans people on the show who are clearly not woke. Clearly not, and oppose it outright. You have Gays Against Groomers, and then you have their sister organization, Trans Against Groomers. But there are people who are, this is why I keep saying, I'll put it this way, that woke does not refer to this leftist Marxist theory. That woke is more about the cult-like adherence to left tribal social orthodoxy. Their support for Ukraine has nothing to do with Karl Marx. I mean, like, why do they fly the flag? That makes no sense. But there's a strong correlation between those who do and what we would refer to as woke. What we're seeing with these people, I believe, is they're going on the internet. They're seeking social validation. They are finding it in these rules and policies and then pushing themselves further and further into that hyper-radicalized social validation. The example that I often use is when Trump started running for office, now what? Man, this was 8 years ago. They wrote an article saying Trump is racist. They get 1 million views. If they write the same article twice, they don't get 1 million views the second time. So they have to say Trump is even more racist. Then they have to say Trump is the most racist. Then they have to say Trump is almost as bad as Hitler. Then Trump is as bad as Hitler. And then finally, Trump is worse than. Because if you don't give people more, the same story won't trigger that dopamine hit. This is what's happening to people online. They're posting something. I mean, we talked about this again with Dylan Mulvaney. If you look at Dylan Mulvaney's TikTok account and go all the way to the beginning, it's animal videos. Animal videos, then Broadway videos, then non-binary, then trans, then time for surgery, and the days of girlhood. Like, clearly what you see is, and you can do this for almost any YouTuber. Look at Mr. Beast. You see their early content, and then eventually they figured out what got them social validation and traffic, and then they start adhering to it and escalating more and more and more. That's why I want to say there's a difference between trans people and woke ideology. This attack comes from the woke cult. It is an element of the left, things that Democrats support. And I assure you there are going to be, and there are trans people who clearly want nothing to do with this and would be absolutely against this and the woke. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.